Twitter files allege very angry Biden team targeted journalists over COVID tweets, Howard Kurtz. Media Buzz host Howard Kurtz discusses the latest batch of Twitter files that reveal the Biden and Trump administrations attempted to suppress COVID content they did not agree with. It was revealed in the latest Twitter files that the Office of Rep. Adam Schiff, D. California, made requests for Twitter to suspend certain accounts. In the second of two back-to-back batches of Elon Musk's Twitter files shared on Tuesday by Substack writer Matt Taibbi, he reported that Twitter received an astonishing variety of requests from officials asking for individuals they didn't like to be banned. An example he shared was one sent in November 2020 by Schiff's office, who contacted Twitter hoping the tech giant would take action regarding alleged harassment from QAnon conspiracists against Schiff's staff, including aide Sean Misko. Remove any and all content about Mr. Misko and other committee staff from its service to include quotes, retweets, and reactions to that content, the request to Twitter read. Suspend the many accounts, including @Greg Rubini and @Paul Sperry, which have repeatedly promoted false QAnon conspiracies. Rep. Adam Schiff, D. California, a member of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol, speaks with members of the press after a hearing at the Capitol in Washington, Tuesday, June 21, 2022. AP photo/Patrick Szymanski. Rep. Adam Schiff, D. California, a member of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol, speaks with members of the press after a hearing at the Capitol in Washington, Tuesday, June 21, 2022. AP photo/Patrick Szymanski, AP photo/Patrick Szymanski. Schiff's office also requested that Twitter stop the spread of future misinformation on Twitter regarding committee staff and label and reduce the visibility of any content. Twitter Files Part 11 shows how PR crisis following 2016 election allowed company to embrace Intel community. Even Twitter declined to honor Schiff's request at the time, Taibbi wrote, noting Twitter's responses to Schiff's office repeatedly saying we don't do this. As Taibbi noted, though, Sperry was later suspended. Schiff's office did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment. Much of the 12th installment of the Twitter files was focused on eagerness from the State Department's Global Engagement Center, GEC, which Taibbi described as a fledgling analytics/intelligence arm to participate in guiding Twitter's moderation of content and how it often used the media to clash with the tech giant beginning in February 2020 as the coronavirus pandemic was underway. The GEC flagged accounts as Russian personas and proxies based on criteria like describing the coronavirus as an engineered bioweapon, blaming research conducted at the Wuhan Institute, and attributing the appearance of the virus to the CIA, Taibbi wrote. State also flagged accounts that retweeted news that Twitter banned the popular US Zero Hedge, claiming the episode led to another flurry of disinformation narratives. ZH had done reports speculating that the virus had lab origin. Placeholder. Twitter takeover of 2022, Elon Musk's wild ride since buying the social media giant. Yoel Roth, Twitter's then head of trust and safety, pushbacked at GEC's own analysis allegedly based on data from the Department of Homeland Security that nearly 250,000 Chinese-linked accounts were peddling propaganda and disinformation about COVID. Roth saw GEC's report partly as an attempt to insert themselves into conversations Twitter has had with intel agencies including the DHS and FBI. The GEC eventually agreed to loop in Twitter before going public with its own findings, but the conflict continued between Twitter and the State Department arm. As Taibbi reported, tech giants including Twitter, Facebook and Google opposed the GEC's inclusion in government talks. Roth at the time saw the GEC as political unlike the FBI and DHS. Roth also saw major risks for Twitter being chummy with the GEC especially as the election heats up, according to an email. Roth further expressed his distrust in the press-happy GEC to FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan, who had constant communication with Twitter. Taibbi wrote, Chan reassured him it would be a one-way channel, and state/GEC, NSA, and CIA have expressed interest in being allowed on in listen mode only. Tabai continued, quoting the FBI agent, "We can give you everything we're seeing from the FBI and USIC agencies," Chan explained, "but the DHS agency CISA will know what's going on in each state." He went on to ask if industry could rely on the FBI to be the belly button of the USG. They eventually settled on an industry call via Signal. Twitter was taking requests from every conceivable government body, beginning with the Senate Intel Committee, SSCI, which seemed to need reassurance Twitter was taking FBI direction. Execs rushed to tell Team SSCI they zapped 5 accounts on an FBI tip, Tabai tweeted with screenshots of emails. Requests arrived and were escalated from all over, from Treasury, the NSA, virtually every state, the HHS, from the FBI and DHS, and more. Twitter honored almost everyone else's requests, even those from GEC, including a decision to ban accounts like @Rebel Protests and @Bricks Media because GEC identified them as GRU-controlled and linked to the Russian government, respectively, Tabai added. By 2020, requests from the Intel community came in bulk and carried on into the Biden administration. According to Tabai, one memo from the 2020 showed that Twitter was warned about publicity surrounding a book by former Ukraine prosecutor Viktor Shokin, who alleged corruption by the U.S. government, specifically by Joe Biden. In the 11th installment reported earlier in the day by Tabai, Twitter had undergone a PR crisis following the 2016 presidential election as it was being pressured by Democrats to take action on alleged Russian influence on the platform as Facebook was doing in 2017, something Tabai concluded influenced Twitter to embrace the Intel community. Substack writer Matt Tabai reported on the first installment of the Twitter Files, which focused on the tech giant's decision to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. Substack writer Matt Tabai reported on the first installment of the Twitter Files, which focused on the tech giant's decision to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story. Lloyd Bishop /NBCU Photo Bank /NBC Universal via Getty Images. Each installment of the Twitter Files was shared by the journalists tapped by Elon Musk in lengthy Twitter threads addressing various controversies. Tabai went viral with the first installment in early December with his Twitter Files focusing on Twitter's internal discussions leading to it censor the Hunter Biden laptop story during the 2020 presidential election, with some officials struggling to explain how it violated its hacked materials policies. It was later revealed that the first batch of Twitter Files was vetted without Musk's knowledge by Twitter Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker, who previously served as the FBI's general counsel and was involved in the Russia probe. Musk fired Baker shortly thereafter. Twitter Files Part 6 reveals FBI's ties to tech giant, as if IT were a subsidiary. Baker was swept up Tabai's reporting about the suppression of the Hunter Biden story, telling his colleagues at the time, "I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether the materials were hacked," but added, "It's reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is warranted." Additionally, Tabai initially reported, although several sources recalled hearing about a general warning from federal law enforcement that some are about possible foreign hacks, "There's no evidence, that I've seen, of any government involvement in the laptop story." It is unclear whether Baker's involvement in vetting the Twitter Files led Tabai to draw that conclusion and whether Baker omitted files that would have shown the federal government intervening in Twitter's suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Jim Baker was fired by Elon Musk as Twitter's deputy general counsel after revelations that he had vetted the first batch of the Twitter Files without Musk's knowledge. Jim Baker was fired by Elon Musk as Twitter's deputy general counsel after revelations that he had vetted the first batch of the Twitter Files without Musk's knowledge. Ron Sachs /Consolidated News Pictures /Getty Images. The second installment published by the Free Press editor Bari Weiss revealed Twitter's blacklisting of prominent conservatives, including Fox News host Dan Bongino, Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk, as well as Stanford University's Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, a long-standing opponent of COVID groupthink during the pandemic who expressed opposition to lockdowns. Internal communications also reveal Twitter staffers admitting that the popular right-wing account Libs of TikTok never violated its hateful conduct policy despite being punished several times for allegedly doing so. Those revelations appear to contradict what former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey told Congress in 2018, when he testified under oath that Twitter did not censor or shadowban conservatives. The third, fourth, and fifth installments of the Twitter files focused on the permanent suspension of former President Trump around the Capitol riot in January 2021. Tabai reported how Twitter circulated election-related tweets from various users leading up to the 2020 election that were flagged by the FBI as being problematic. Independent journalists Matt Tabai and Bari Weiss were tapped by Elon Musk to report on the Twitter files. Independent journalists Matt Tabai and Bari Weiss were tapped by Elon Musk to report on the Twitter files. Daniel Zuchnik/Wire Image, Bari Weiss. Independent writer Michael Schellenberger revealed that Dorsey was phoning it in as he was on vacation while his deputies were pushing to deplatform Trump, with Twitter's former head of trust and safety Yoel Roth particularly spearheading efforts to censor other users pertaining to tweets about the 2020 election. It became known that Roth met on a weekly basis with the FBI, Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in the weeks leading up to the election. Weiss addressed the pressure Twitter management was facing from its employees who called for Trump's permanent suspension, though the Free Press editor also revealed several Twitter staffers who enforce policies did not believe Trump's tweets from January 6 actually violated its rules. However, it was Vijay Gadde, then Twitter's head legal chief, who asked if Trump's tweets could be coded incitement to further violence. Moments later, the so-called scaled enforcement team suggested that based on how Twitter interprets Trump's tweets, it could violate the violence incitement policies. Part 6 of the Twitter files put a spotlight on Twitter's close ties with the FBI. Tabai alleged the law enforcement agency was acting like a subsidiary of the tech giant, revealing communications that showed FBI agents systemically flagged Twitter users for tweets that included possible violative content pertaining to the election. In response to the Twitter files, a spokesperson for the FBI told Fox News Digital, the FBI regularly engages with private sector entities to provide information specific to identified foreign malign influence actors' subversive, undeclared, covert, or criminal activities. Private sector entities independently make decisions about what, if any, action they take on their platforms and for their customers after the FBI has notified them. The FBI's routine contact with Twitter regarding users that would ultimately face punishment for their tweets has raised major flags about potential First Amendment violations. FBI headquarters building is seen in Washington. U.S. pro-Russian hackers have claimed to have hacked the FBI website this week. FBI headquarters building is seen in Washington. U.S. pro-Russian hackers have claimed to have hacked the FBI website this week. Reuters/Yuri Grippas. In Part 7, Schellenberger framed the Twitter's coziness with the FBI in the context of the Hunter Biden laptop story, showing the FBI's requests for Twitter to share sensitive data of its users, which Twitter refused to give, and the agency's repeated inquiries into whether Twitter has seen foreign activity leading up to the 2020 election, something Twitter at the time said it hadn't. On October 13, 2020, just one day before the New York Post broke its Hunter Biden story that was quickly censored, Twitter received 10 unknown documents from the FBI through its secure one-way teleport channel. One email from February 2021 shows the FBI paid Twitter over $3.4 million since October 2019 over the course of their partnership, as Twitter's policies seek reimbursements when it comes to producing information as part of a legal process. Roth had even participated in what was dubbed the Hack and Dump Working Group with the Aspen Institute in September 2020 to elaborately simulate how the media and big tech should handle something like the Hunter Biden laptop. The FBI remained defiant amid criticism, telling Fox News in a statement the correspondence between the FBI and Twitter show nothing more than examples of our traditional, long-standing, and ongoing federal government and private sector engagements, which involve numerous companies over multiple sectors and industries. As evidenced in the correspondence, the FBI provides critical information to the private sector in an effort to allow them to protect themselves and their customers. It is unfortunate that conspiracy theorists and others are feeding the American public misinformation with the sole purpose of attempting to discredit the agency. Part 8, shared by Intercept investigative reporter Li Feng, exposed Twitter's assistance in the Pentagon's foreign influencing campaigns, allowing the military to use covered accounts to push out propaganda overseas despite it being against Twitter's own policies. Tabai separately reported in the 9th installment about Twitter's constant interactions with OGAS, other government agencies, including the CIA. The 10th batch of Twitter files, this time reported by writer David Zweig, focused on COVID and the platform's efforts to enforce its so-called misinformation policy, reporting both the Trump and Biden administrations directly pressed Twitter executives to moderate the platform's pandemic content according to their wishes. Zweig highlighted a memo written by Lauren Culbertson, Twitter's head of U.S. public policy, who claimed the Biden team was very angry about Twitter not taking action to deplatform various accounts based on meetings with the White House. Musk teased there's much more Twitter files to reveal in 2023, particularly about COVID and how top doctors and scientists were actively suppressed on Twitter, presumably for going against the White House-approved narrative. Joseph A. Wolfson is a media reporter for Fox News Digital. Story tips can be sent to joseph.wolfsohn@fox.com and on Twitter @josephwolfson.